Wow, we are not off to a good start, are we? I went into this movie with low expectations, and it actually managed to be worse than I thought it was going to be. The actors are all fine. Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron have decent chemistry with one another, but other than that, there is just nothing worthwhile in this movie. It tells possibly the most cliche and predictable plot and doesn't do anything to spice up the formula despite them being lifeguards. The movie also tries to follow the 21 Jump Street formula, which you take a really old show and try to reboot it as a raunchy R-rated movie, which that apparently seems to be a popular trend nowadays, but the movie never really feels like it justifies that R rating. Yes, they drop F-bombs, and yes, there is certain male genitalia shown, but those really feel like they're used for cheap laughs for the 12-year-olds that snuck in the theater, rather than actual smart humor like 21 Jump Street had.
Well, the thing, right. You have the right to remain an attorney.
Did you say that you have the right to be an attorney?
You do have the right to be an attorney if you want to.
So in the end, Baywatch is an action comedy where the action isn't thrilling and the comedy isn't funny. If you want a good Baywatch remake, then just go watch the David Hasselhoff cameo in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
Oh no. How will we ever get back to Bikini Bottom now?
I can take you there.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Okay, so I love the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I even love the sequels that a lot of people seem to hate. Yeah, they have problems, but I feel like each individual installment introduces fun characters, great action, and a phenomenal soundtrack. However, with this fifth installment, while I enjoyed it overall, I would have to say that this is the weakest of the 5 pirate movies. Everything that I loved about the previous films is here, it's just not quite as good as it was in the other movies. The characters are fun, but some of them feel like they've lost some of the traits that made them so interesting to begin with. Jack Sparrow is still a blast and a great protagonist, but it feels like they're relying a bit too much on the comical side of him and not enough on the badass side of him. The action is great, but again, it's not quite as inventive as, say, that 3-way sword fight in Dead Man's Chest. And the music was also a little underwhelming. Hans Zimmer unfortunately did not return to do this installment, and the new composer is fine, but it just feels like they really play it safe, and they just kind of stick to all the same stuff that we've heard before. The movie also promised to bring back Will and Elizabeth from the original trilogy, but they feel so shoehorned in and are pretty much pointless. Hell, Keira Knightley was not even given a single line of dialogue in this movie. That should tell you how important she is. Apart from that, the movie has a lot of jokes that bomb, and there are a lot of scenes that are just flat out stupid. However, if it's one thing that these movies seem to consistently get right, it's the villains. Javier Bardem's Capitan Salazar easily steals the show here. He manages to be very menacing, but also pretty entertaining at the same time. He is easily the best part of the movie, by far. And also the way he says Jack Sparrow it's pretty great.
Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow.
Spanish?
So yeah, it's fine, but it's not nearly as good as the other 4. I'm just starting to feel like this franchise is beginning to run out of ideas. If the franchise continues, then they really need to find more ways for it to be more creative and fresh and inventive. But if that end credits scene in this movie is any indication, then it looks like they might be sticking to more of the same old and rehashing similar concepts again. I like these movies a lot, but it's just starting to feel like this might be a dead franchise that should just stop telling tales. Yeah. You see what I did there? It's like the title of the movie, but I switched it around a little bit.
Oh, shut it.
Captain Underpants! Wow. Who would have thought that this would be the movie that would break our losing streak here? Yeah, believe it or not, the Captain Underpants movie is actually pretty great. In fact, I would go as far to say that it's the best animated movie I've seen all year. It's colorful, it's creative, it's heartfelt, and it's actually a pretty perfect adaptation of the books they're based on. I loved the books as a kid, but the thing they were really missing was more emotional moments, and thankfully the movie knew this and added some in, but they never really distract from the movie's humor. Yeah, this movie is a comedy through and through, and it's pretty darn funny. There's even some adult humor that's snuck in there very well. Like, I am pretty sure I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure there is a joke about the Holocaust in this movie. Yeah, you know, it's for the kids.
You know, for kids.
But all in all, it's a great animated film that I really think all audiences will love. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I highly recommend checking it out. Tra-la-la! Wonder Woman!
We did it! We did it! We did it! Yay! Always team up! We did it!
They did it! They finally did it! DC finally made a movie that's worth a damn! This has been a great year for comic book movies thus far, and I'm glad to say that Wonder Woman is not an exception. What I loved about this movie is that it gets so many things monumentally right that Batman v Superman got monumentally wrong. For starters, the characters are actually likable. Chris Pine, along with all the other side characters, all play off each other really well and are really entertaining. But Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot, I've heard it pronounced like a million different ways. I don't know which one's the right one. I'm sorry, you're good, you're so good in this movie, I just don't know how to pronounce your goddamn name. Anyway, her as Wonder Woman is actually a hero I can root for. She's super charismatic and incredibly charming, and she's not sitting around moping around and whining and complaining about everything all the time like these two jackasses do. The action scenes in this movie are absolutely fantastic. The No Man's Land scene especially is just a blast to watch and is incredibly impressive. If I were to complain about one thing, it's that there's a lot of stuff surrounding the main villain that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but other than that, the movie is pretty great. And I'm so glad because this movie needed to be great. Not just because DC's previous films have been not great, but because this is Wonder Woman we're talking about here. Do you know how long people have been waiting to see a Wonder Woman movie? I mean, she is the female superhero. How did it take this long to get a movie made about Wonder Woman? Better question, how the hell did we get a freaking Catwoman movie before we got a Wonder Woman movie?
What can I do for you?
White Russian. No ice. Hold the vodka. Hold the Kahlua.
Green. Straight up.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
The wait may have been long, but DC did not disappoint because Wonder Woman is simply wonderful. Yeah, he's wonderful because the movie's called Wonder Woman and it's wonderful!
Shut up!
Transformers: The Last Night. Well, it's better than the last one. Or, no, let me rephrase that. This is probably the most poorly made movie in the Transformers franchise, but it did have some things that I liked. And by some things, I mean Anthony Hopkins. Seriously, Anthony Hopkins is this movie's saving grace. I mean, his character and the writing for his character is such total Michael Bay overload, but it was really funny to see an established and very well-respected actor like Anthony Hopkins do a Michael Bay script and act like a Michael Bay character. That was just, it was fun. It was funny to me. I enjoyed it.
Look, old timer, I don't have a ton of patience for riddles right now.
Yes, but you want to know, don't you, dude?
Apart from him, though, the rest of the movie is just so bleh. It spends way too much time on the boring human characters and not nearly enough time on the actual Transformers. You know, the actual Transformers that people actually see these movies to go see, the Transformers and not the humans! It's just becoming increasingly more difficult to understand what these movies are trying to be. If they're trying to be these ultra-dramatic, epic space operas, then the really bad humor and explosions just completely undermine that. But if it's trying to be just a dumb, stupid summer blockbuster, then it also fails at being that because the expositional and overly long and dramatic moments ruin that. So either way, if it's trying to be a really epic space opera or trying to be just a dumb popcorn flick, it fails at both of those. The special effects aren't nearly as impressive as they were in the first film, the action scenes are basically just a bunch of explosions and shaky cam, and last but certainly not least, it is too damn long! There is absolutely no reason for these movies to be as long as they are. You're Transformers, for God's sakes, not Lord of the f***ing Rings! Apart from that, the movie just makes a bunch of rookie mistakes. For example, the aspect ratio will constantly change from shot to shot, and it was really distracting. The fact that a professional director and a professional cinematographer from a major motion picture studio, the fact that they actually made this mistake is just baffling to me. If you hated the previous Transformers movies, you'll hate this one too. It makes pretty much all the exact same mistakes as its predecessors. Still though, it's better than the last one. This movie at least had a redeeming quality. Age of Extinction had no redeeming qualities.
Your car? Huh?